Okay, everybody, I'd like to introduce someone who I met as a young teenager when we made a film together with a group called Call and a Nogue, and his name is Liam Fahy. Liam, maybe you could tell us, how did you first get into animation?
Hello everyone. Yes, it's me, Liam. So how did I start on this animation journey? Well, I always loved cartoons since I was a wee lad growing up on the den. Um, but it was around third year of secondary school when I found out that art college was a thing you could do after secondary school. You could actually go to a place and actually study art and do art and not have to bother with maths. So once I found out that was a thing, I was like, yes, that sounds like the thing for me. All right. I didn't even know animation was a subject you could do. So what I did in third year was I started going to any open days I could find. And I think, yeah, the first one I went to was in the Limerick School of Art and Design in Limerick. And that was kind of my first exposure to what an art college physically was. And it's crazy. The Limerick School of Art and Design is a really lovely building. And it just blew my mind walking through it. There's like art everywhere. There's all the studios and all the students in there are doing their own creative thing. And it just blew my mind because it was nothing like secondary school at all. And it was there that I attended like my first portfolio talk where one of the lecturers explained, well, in order to get in here, you need to have a portfolio of artwork, and then we will assess, and then we'll see if you're good enough to get in. So that was kind of my first introduction to what an art college was and how to get in. So I knew, okay, I need this thing called a portfolio. And it was also my first introduction to what kind of courses were available. So there's pretty much two categories of courses. There's design and there's fine art. So design courses are like Viscom or graphic design, as it used to be called, which is like designing posters, designing posters, apps, very entrepreneurial things. And then fine art is kind of more like stuff like painting, sculpture, ceramics, and what's the other one? What's the other one that always comes to mind? Print's another one. But pretty much the difference between the two, between design and fine art, is that design is more function based. You're designing things with function in mind. I'm making an image to help sell this film. I'm making a poster to sell this film. That's its function. Whereas fine art is more function free. It's kind of more open to interpretation. I'm making a sculpture to be displayed that will hopefully be displayed in a place that will inspire. So once I found out that those were kind of like the rough definitions of the two categories, I was like, okay, I'm definitely leaning more towards design. So I started kind of looking into more colleges that were kind of more design focused. So the Limerick School is kind of more 50-50 design and fine art, but probably more of the fine art was kind of my impression. So I tried to see if I could find a more design-based college. And that's what kind of led me to IADT, the Institute of Art and Design Technology in Dunleary, up in Dublin, and which is also the National Film School as well. So again, I was like, oh, this place has film as well. Oh, it's really interesting. So I started looking into them then, found out when the open day was, and I was like, cool, I'm going to head up there. And I think it was around fifth year. I think it was around fifth year at this time. I didn't do TY, so from third year to fifth year was when I was looking into this. So in fifth year, I went to the open day, and I was blown away. So I went through like all the different talks. Every course like had its own talk going on about what was involved, and I I thought it was a very good sign that I kept coming back to the animation talk. I went to the animation talk I think 3 times. It was that good, and I was like, okay, that's a sign I'm pretty interested in animation. It was just really cool. The lecturers were really cool. The students were really cool. And they had loads of sample portfolios laid out. And I was like, oh, this looks like the stuff I want to do. And pretty much what was kind of like the deciding factor then when I was coming into Leaving Cert then and trying to figure out my CEO form, like, okay, what do I really need to put down here? I was like, okay, animation is my number one because it pretty much encompassed all my interests. So I like drawing, which is a good one. You need that for animation, definitely. Lots of drawing. I like acting. I was involved in the Clare Youth Theatre for 4 years, I think it was. And I loved it. Absolutely loved the Clare Youth Theatre. I loved kind of the improv and the storytelling that we were doing and the acting. And animation is pretty much, an animator is like an invisible actor, effectively. We're like puppeteers in a way. So that was covered as well. And film, I loved film. Again, got to do some film with Emma back in Cornwall and Oak. That was kind of my first, I think that was kind of my first like proper like youth film experience. And I really just loved like the planning that went behind it. I loved the storyboarding, trying to figure out what are the shots. And I really loved the editing process then afterwards of cutting everything, of getting all the footage then and cutting it all together. So I was like, okay, well, it ticks all these boxes for me. I really liked the talk at the open day. The college itself was really nice, like not too big, not too small. It was like just the right size for me. And I was like, you know what? That's it for me. So I'm going to IADT, hook or by crook. I just need to get a portfolio now and I'll be sorted. So that was kind of what led me towards kind of choosing animation as a route. It was at the open day in IADT that I first discovered what a PLC course was. So they recommended that, okay, you can do your portfolio during the Leaving Cert, on top of all your other studies as well. Try to get together this massive artwork to send to see if you're good enough to get in. But they said you could do a PLC course, which is a post-Leaving Cert course, a course you do after you do the Leaving Cert, where you can just focus on doing your portfolio, submit then, and then see if you can get in then. Kind of almost like a transition year between secondary school and college. And I was like, yep, that's for me. The moment I found out, I was like, okay, I'm a very one-track mind person, so trying to juggle the Leaving Cert and the PLC and the portfolio together, I was like, that's too much. Too much for me, no thanks. So what I did was I studied for my Leaving Cert, got up my artwork that I had done, submitted that to the PLC course in Limerick, in LCFE, the Limerick College of Further Education, did my PLC course there, met some new friends that were also going for IADT, and then we all just submitted then to IADT then together, and so that's how I was lucky enough that I actually did get in then to the course on my first try from that PLC course.
So can you tell us now then, you spoke to me before about the different styles of animation from different colleges?
Well, in IADT, we really specialize in 2D animation. A lot of the colleges in Ireland specialize in 2D animation, which has been like your typical like classic Disney. And actually, they actually, when we start in these courses, they start us off on paper, like they had like at the desks, like they had back in the old Disney days. And the desks we actually use in IADT are actually the same desks that they animated the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show, the one from the 1990s, 1980s. So it's very traditionally 2D based at the start, and then as the years go on, then they kind of introduce some 3D stuff, and then people usually divide, then they either go down the 3D route or the 2D route, and then some very talented people do both. But mostly it's 2D animation anyway that we specialize in the colleges in Ireland anyway. And in terms of style, like a lot of my lecturers will always say about colleges in the other countries, they'll say like, oh, they have, like, you can tell that film is from that school because there's a very distinct style. Like you just know that's from that school. Whereas they kind of something that they pride our courses on is that you can never really tell where the films are coming from because everyone's styles are so distinct and unique. There's kind of like not one set, because they let us kind of like be more kind of expressive and explorative with our styles. Whereas in other colleges they might be kind of more like they'll show you like, this is how you should do a character design, or this is how you should do animation, which can produce, and they produce really good content. that's not dissing them. They do really amazing stuff. but yeah, for IADT anyway, and the Irish colleges, there was definitely a great mix of styles that comes out, and employers seem to appreciate that as well.
When you graduated from IADT, I believe you entered your final piece of film into the animation festival in Dingle, where you were awarded 2 prizes. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So did my 4 years, and then final year of college, you have the opportunity to produce a grad film. So you spend your last year, your final year project is to make a film. So my film, How to Rob a Witch, when I finished it up, I didn't get it finished in time for for the grad show, which is like the big show at the end of 4th year that everyone shows off all their stuff. I didn't get it done in time for that, unfortunately, but I finished it like a month afterwards. And then I started submitting to loads of festivals, and it didn't get accepted to a lot of festivals, but that's typical. That's apparently pretty typical. Starting off, so I was submitting to like around any place I could. And the first festival that it kind of got accepted at was the Dublin Animation Film Festival, which is in Dunleary, and it got on really well there. It got the Audience Choice Award there. So at DAF, the Dublin Animation Film Festival, the audience is asked to vote for which is their favorite, and by some miracle anyway, they voted for me. They voted for my film anyway. So it had that accolade on it, at least, when I submitted then to Dingle. And so that might have helped it get into Dingle. I'm not too sure. But anyway, so got into Dingle then. And yes, unfortunately, it was also, Dingle was, of course, had to go completely virtual because of the pandemic. Unfortunately, that was literally the start of it. It's like just after St. Patrick's Day, 2020. So unfortunately, all our plans to go down to Dingle were cancelled. So they did a virtual festival then. So I was watching I was watching the presentation online on my own up in Dublin in my small little box room that I had for college that I still held on to. And that's when they did the award ceremony. And yeah, I nearly fell out of my seat when they announced that I had gotten the best. The film was awarded best writer, and I was like, oh my god, what incredible! Like I wasn't expecting the Audience Choice Award in DAF, so this was just like cherry on top. I was like, that's what incredible. I can never ask for anything ever again. This is great. And then they hit me again with the announcement that I had also won the best 2D film as well. I was like, oh my, what? I was on the floor. I literally like fell off my seat with shock then. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened. So it was kind of the most triumphant moment, but also kind of the loneliest moment as well, because I was just on my own. My roommates were probably thinking I was going mad, like roaring in celebration, like yes. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, so that was kind of a really nice bookend to my student career, I suppose you could say. Like I honestly could not have asked for more.
In terms of that, then bringing it on to your career, tell us now: are you working in the animation industry? Is it something that there are jobs for in Ireland? Tell us about your graduate friends. Are they working in the film in the animation industry?
Yes, I can. I'm very happy to say that a good chunk of my class, I'd even say 90% of my class are actually working in the industry now, in various different places. I myself and around, I think, 3 others of my classmates were working for a company called HMH, which is like one of the main educational textbook publishers in the United States for their schools. And we're producing what you could call motion graphics animations for them. So we're doing like educational videos for teaching stuff like maths and English. Was not the job I thought I would get out of college, but I was happy to get it when I did. Like pretty much about half a year out of college, I got this gig, and I've been with them now for pretty much since the pandemic started. so just over a year now. So I'm very happy to be there. It's not exactly what I would have established as my dream job in animation, but it's still very good, and it's very rewarding as well, because we're making content that is helping kids find maths a tiny bit less boring, which is always good. But yeah, so there's a group of us there in HMH. There's a group in, let me think. There's a group, I think there's a couple down in Lighthouse in Kilkenny. Lighthouse Studios is the sister studio to Cartoon Saloon, who've done Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, and Wolfwalkers, their latest one. So there's a couple of them down there. There's a couple sprinkled over in Boulder Media. I think there's one or two there. They're the studio that are behind such classics such as Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. What else? Danger Mouse. That's on Netflix now. And what other one? Wander Over Yonder. A lot of Hasbro's intellectual properties, such as My Little Pony and Transformers as well. So their new cartoons are all being made in Dublin in Boulder Media. And then a good chunk have been hired by Studio Mala. I can never pronounce the name right. Oh, they'll shoot me if they heard me. But that's kind of like one of the newest studios that's been set up. And that studio is completely remote. Like they were working from home before the pandemic. But they are producing a lot of really cool content. Definitely look up their YouTube channel. They're producing some really cool stuff. And viral stuff as well. It's getting like hits. It's getting the views. So they're hiring a good few now. So a good few of my year and the year that graduated after us. They're there now. So there's a good load of us, and then one or two others. Then like the remainder then are like applying for funding to make their own new shorts, and a couple of them have actually gone on and made new short films. Clean and Noonan would be like a really good example of that. I think she's made like 3 or 4 short films since she's graduated over these past 2 years, which is like phenomenal stuff. So she's done stuff like the residency in Offaly. So like it's a place where you apply for like this grant where you go and you actually make a film over the course of 6 months in Offaly. Which sounds like a great time. I'd love to give that a shot maybe someday. But she's done that, and then I've 1 or 2 friends then that are pursuing animation, like doing like a master's degree. I know Rachel Fitzgerald is doing one over in the RCA over in London right now. But yeah, so a lot of people are definitely busy. I don't think anyone's left with empty hands really, which is good to report.
So to finish up then, what would you say to the young people that have been taking part in our workshops over the last 2 weeks and have produced some of them have produced their first animations ever and maybe have picked up an interest in animation? What kind of little bit of advice would you give to them? I think you said one of the things you said to me was animation was something that you can get into and your parents aren't going to give out to you for, because even though it's art, it's a kind of art that you can get a job in. So what kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, I suppose, yeah, you could say to mom and dad, you can say, now listen here, there's jobs in animation. And again, Cartoon Saloon in Kilkenny is probably the best example to point you. Like, look, there's award-winning studios in Ireland, and they are hiring good people. And there's all these studios. See, that's the thing. You can reassure your parents or your your career guidance teacher that there are options there. Like there's a lot of animation studios in Ireland that you probably would not have heard. Like I never heard of any of these studios outside of Cartoon Saloon until I started in animation, and I was shocked to hear that. Oh my God! There's like they made that series. I thought that was made over in the States, but no, it turns out it was actually made here. It was maybe like pre-produced in the States, like the story and stuff, but then it was shipped over here. And there's a great history of that in Ireland as well. That's kind of how animation started in Ireland as well. Don Bluth, who did like American Tail and all those, he came over after leaving Disney and set that up here. So we've had this great like history of making animation in Ireland, and it's only going from strength to strength. So you can reassure everyone, it is definitely a decent route to go down, in case everyone's like, oh, animation, is there anything in that? Plus the skills you learn in animation can be applied to so many different areas. So even though, yes, I've studied as an animator, like I know, like I've studied design, which can be applied to stuff like graphic design as well. So I could turn my hand to pretty much anything with the skills that I've gained from animation. It's kind of a really good, because animation itself like covers so many different areas as well, which is a really nice thing to have as part of a course as well, is that you kind of can get this broad kind of skill set. So animation, so animating covers the movement part of it, but there's also background art, which is all about creating beautiful background illustrations for the characters to be staged in. You've got more technical sides where like people like set up like rigging and kind of coding, so it makes the characters easier to animate. And then there's 3D, which has its so many different areas in it as well. So you'll come out of, if you do pursue animation, you'll come out of it with quite a broad skill set. And it's a lovely industry to work in as well. Like the one thing, all the talks that I've gone to with people from the industry, they've always said the same things, like, to work in animation, you have to be nice. you have to just be like, you have to be a decent person. Because if you're not a decent person, or if you're awkward to work with, you know, you don't last very long. So the people who are in the industry are very, very nice people. We're good team workers. And animation is very much a team area, which is really a nice aspect of it. Like no animator is an island. You can animate things on your own, but it's always easier with friends. So you'll actually end up getting like a lot of close friends as well in it, which is...
That's really lovely, Liam. Thank you ever so much for talking to me tonight. We're now going to show some animations. We're going to start off with some of your colleagues that you graduated with and show their animations, and then we'll finish with your award-winning animation, which will be fantastic, which is How to Rob a Witch.
Well done. You remembered it. That's very good. Yeah.
So thank you again, Liam, and it's been a pleasure to work with you again.
Thank you very much. It's been great. It's been great catching up as well again. And yeah, enjoy the films. Enjoy the films, everybody. They're varied and different. And the people who made them are very cool. And hopefully, maybe one day you too will make your own. And we'll see you in the industry. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, that's all I have to say, I suppose.